Good morning and welcome to Brookings. I'm Stephanie Aronson, Vice President and Director of the Economic Studies program here. Thank you for joining us this morning for Can Retirement Plans Provide Safe Income? Before we begin, I want to take the opportunity to thank Bill Gale for organizing today's event, to all of our authors and discussants for their participation, and to Anna Dawson for making it all happen. The topic we are here to discuss today couldn't be more urgent. Each day, 10,000 Americans reach retirement age. We regularly hear about the challenges that Americans face in saving enough for retirement. On aggregate, U.S. households face a deficit of nearly $4 trillion in retirement savings. And there's been significant public debate about a range of policies aimed at reducing this deficit, including inducements to longer working lives and higher savings. But of course, benefits in Social Security and defined benefits are paid for life. But Social Security was never intended to provide full retirement income, and defined benefits plans are dwindling in numbers. Thus, the rising number of people who are enrolled in defined contribution plans, like 401ks, face the challenge of figuring out how to make their retirement savings last through the remainder of their lives. A task that is made difficult due in part to what economists euphemistically call longevity risk, which is just the fact that individuals don't know when they'll die. As a result, people may spend too much early in retirement and run out of financial resources before reaching the ends of their lives. Or, if they spend their savings too slowly, they will have foregone some consumption they might otherwise have enjoyed. This conference focuses on several potential solutions to managing risk in retirement. One option is better policy for annuities. Modern annuities have been around for decades, and they currently represent an industry with over $2 trillion in assets in the U.S. But as will be discussed this morning, there are barriers to their wider use, which need to be addressed through better policymaking. A second option includes pooled investment trusts and tontines, new and old ways of addressing these same issues. The fact that we face such a huge shortfall in retirement savings and that we need vehicles such as annuities and other options to manage retirement income points to the limitations of traditional economic models in which individuals behave rationally and have perfect foresight of their futures. In such models, individuals would save enough for retirement and would faultlessly manage their spending. To reconcile this discrepancy, the study of retirement has come to depend substantially on the insights of behavioral economics, which argues that we need to focus on the ways in which individual behavior deviates from the classical model. In the case of retirement, for instance, this means acknowledging that individuals have myopic saving behavior and imperfect foresight about health and longevity. With that in mind, it is my great pleasure to welcome our keynote speaker today, Richard Thaler. Professor Thaler is the Charles R. Walgreen Distinguished Service Professor of Behavioral Science and Economics at the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business. He is also a past president of the American Economics Association, and most notably, he is the recipient of the 2017 Nobel Prize in Economics for his work on behavioral economics. His work on topics such as limited rationality, social preferences, and lack of self-control has revolutionized how economists analyze a broad array of problems, including retirement. Moreover, Professor Thaler has also played a significant role in popularizing the insights of behavioral economics and its implications for policy. His work points to larger truths that have propelled economics toward a more holistic understanding of our agency as people who, while perhaps not fully rational and occasionally lacking in foresight, can nonetheless, with the right incentives and tools, make better choices for ourselves. Upon winning the Nobel Prize, Richard Thaler said, "In order to do good economics, you have to keep in mind that people are human." I would like to add that it's about good economics, but it's also about taking up economics in the cause of doing good. I hope we'll take a step in that direction today. And on that note, and on behalf of Brookings, I'm delighted to welcome Richard Thaler.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. There are two very nice papers that I was able to see, only mildly redacted. I was trying to figure out the formula for what you blacked out, but so why retirement saving is a topic I've been interested in since well before I even knew what retirement might be like. And so why is it a topic that a behavioral economist would be interested in? It includes two of the things I've spent a lot of my life thinking about. One is self-control problems, and the other is what we call bounded rationality. And to see why that's the case, think about what the standard economic model is of saving for retirement. It's called the life cycle theory of saving, and it assumes that what people do is starting, well, possibly in high school, they think about what they're going to make over the course of their lifetime, and what rates of return they'll get on various investments. Then they'll determine the optimal path of consumption over their lifetime. Maybe they want to live it up when they're young, or when they're retired, or give it all to their kids, what have you. Anyway, they solve that problem, invest accordingly, and then implement that plan perfectly. Now, that's a hard problem. That's a really hard problem. In fact, I don't know a single economist who claims to have solved that problem for himself. My friend David Laibson, a guy way smarter than me, who has the mathematical skills to solve that problem, once when I made a comment like this, he said, no, he had solved it. And then he had recently married, and I asked him what provisions he had made for the probability of divorce. And then he folded, and in spite of the fact he married a mathematician, so she could have helped out with the math, not that he needs it. So it's a really hard problem. I can tell you my personal solution to this problem is I just plan to work until I die. And that, I think that's a good problem, except it really only works if your job doesn't have any real work. So for those who have to actually do something resembling work, they have to think harder about retirement. So behavioral economists have, myself included, and many of my friends have worked on the front end of this problem, along with several of the people on this panel, especially Mark Avery, who always knows what the laws are, in trying to make 401k plans easier to navigate. And so things like automatic enrollment, automatic escalation, or what Shlomo Benartzi and I have called Save More Tomorrow, the introduction of target date funds and other sensible default investment vehicles. All of these things have been introduced to make it easier for people who can't solve that math problem to just do whatever the default is, and that plus Social Security, we hope, will get them something sensible. Of course, a problem for another day is there are still 40% of American workers who don't have a saving plan at their work. Like I say, that's a topic for another day. But what we're here to talk about today is, now you've reached my age and you have some pot of money and or not, and you have to figure out how to make it last. And if the first problem is hard, this one is way harder. And the reason is that the saving for retirement problem you can simplify in the following way. You can say, let's suppose I plan to work until I'm 65. And you guesstimate some amount of money that you'll want to add to Social Security to give you a reasonable cushion. And you aim for that. And then you can adjust, hopefully, the actual retirement age. So if you are running short, you work a few years longer. If you've hit it big, you quit a little earlier. And, that might not be bad. The so-called decumulation problem, how you draw down, the problem is there's nothing like age 65. You may know when you retire that you're in poor health and cash out and live it up, but no one knows that they are a high risk to live to 100. So, and you have to worry about getting unlucky and living to 100. So that's the problem these guys are working to solve, is what do you do for the unlucky people that get to live a long time? I should say, just on the side, that the decumulation problem has been exacerbated by the demise of a once important social norm, a social norm that applied in my parents' generation, which was the first thing you do is pay off the mortgage. And if you look at the data from, say, 1980, and you look at mortgage debt for people in their 60s, it's essentially zero. People bought a house, they got a 30-year mortgage, and they paid it off. Now, people in their 60s, not only do they not have enough money in their 401k plan, they have debt. And they may have car loans on top of that. So the problem is even harder than it might have been. So we're going to hear about some solutions today, and I will not try to preview those. I get to come back afterwards. One spoiler alert: a tontine is not a French pastry. So just don't get too excited about that. Instead, I have a pet idea that I'd like to add to the mix of policy ideas that are going to be discussed today, and maybe we can talk about this at the end. And the idea is to allow people to buy into more Social Security benefits. And now this may seem like a wild and crazy idea, but actually all the math has already been done by the Social Security Administration. And the reason is this: if you retire at 63, you get a benefit of X. If you retire at 70, you get X plus 50% or something like that. And each year you work, the actuary at the Social Security Administration has calculated how to adjust your benefits. The same is true if you start claiming and then start making too much money. They reduce your current benefits and add on. So all the math is done. What I'm proposing is that people would be allowed to take a portion of their 401k benefits when they retire and send it to the SSA up to some cap, say 250,000. 100,000 actually would do a lot. That's more than something like 2/3 of the current account balances in 401k plans. So 100,000 would do a fair amount of good. Now, what would this get you? It would get you the only indexed annuity, so price adjusted, that's guaranteed by the federal government. It would get you that at fair actuarial value. No one in the private sector is prepared to do either of those things. As far as I know, there are no indexed annuities and certainly none guaranteed by the government. One of the things you're going to be hearing about today has the term longevity risk. And what that means for an individual is you live long. What that means for an insurance company is that, perish the thought, we find a cure for cancer or for heart disease, and life expectancies go up by 5 years, and then all insurance companies selling annuities go broke. For years, I've been facetiously, I have to telling my students, if you want to get rich, here's a plan. First, you establish a residency in some Caribbean island with no extradition treaty. Then you open up an insurance company and sell earthquake insurance. And you collect premiums until the big one hits. And then you head for your private jet, go directly to your island, and live happily ever after. This is kind of similar to offering annuities in the private sector on a big scale, because the equivalent of the big earthquake is some major change to longevity, and that could be a problem. Let me make one last comment, and then two last comments, and then turn it over to the people with real content. One of the things we'll hear about is that people don't like annuities because they want to leave bequests to their kids. I think we want to disabuse people of this idea. First of all, if you want to leave bequests to your kids, do it now while you're around and they can thank you. And otherwise, you're going to end up leaving money to some 60-year-old who doesn't need it and probably could have used it earlier in life. And the best possible bequest somebody my age can give is to promise never to move in with my kids. The last idea I will float and I don't know how to do this, but I would like to get it into the mix of ideas, is linking these retirement income solutions to buy-ins to assisted living. So you'll hear lots of talk about delayed, what do we call them? The annuities that deferred annuities. Deferred annuities, so I buy an annuity that will start when I'm 85. What I would like to do is, what I would like to see is somebody selling that says, at 85, you get a key to the assisted living center. And that kind of solves all the rest of the problems, right? Because Medicare will take care of your health bills and the assisted living will feed you. And so I think there's a solution there that involves the public and private sector in interesting ways that I haven't seen written about, and maybe we'll get to talk about that at the end too. Thanks very much for having me, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos from Brookings.